Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of the World Teen Parliament's 28th Parliamentary Session. Every month on the third Saturday, we try to bring together those 100 teenagers from across the world who have went through a rigorous election process and got elected as teen members of Parliament of the World Teen Parliament. 3 years back, we started the World Teen Parliament with a simple idea: let teenagers find the joy in democracy, in understanding how the world really works. Let's give them an opportunity to talk to policymakers. Let's give them an opportunity to understand how countries really work. And most importantly, making them understand what's the onus, what's the responsibility, and what does it really feel like to be the representative of so many people and take decisions on their behalf. Thank you so much once again, everyone, for being a part of the World Teen Parliament 28th Parliamentary Session. We'll now be starting the session. I would request all the teen members of Parliament, MPs and influencers who are there on this call, please keep your videos on during the complete conversation. When you ask your questions, take your time. Don't, rush it through. make sure the guest understands your question. And if the guest allows, you can ask a follow-up question. If the guest does not allow, you cannot ask a follow-up question. Both the guests who are there for the session today, you have the option of passing a question if you don't want to answer that. That's up to your choice. Most importantly, all the teen MPs and influencers, make sure that you're super respectful during the complete conversation. You are getting an opportunity to talk to such amazing people. Use it well. Enjoy this session. Thank you so much once again for joining us. This is the 28th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament, which is fortunately the world's first and only elected parliament of teenagers on the face of this earth, which is also recommended by the Supreme Court Bar Association of India and also by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you so much, everyone. Let me invite the first speaker for today to initiate the 28th Parliamentary Session, somebody who brings in a very unique kind of an experience to the table. He can share some anecdotes, some stories, or some insights into how does democracy really step into a country, because he's somebody who's seen the genesis of it happening in the country and been a very active participant of it. A very warm welcome to Mr. Jayaseelan Naidoo, who was the founding General Secretary of the Congress of South African Trade Unions and also was the Minister of Reconstruction, Development and Communications in President Mandela's cabinet. A very warm welcome, sir. Over to you for the next 3 to 4 minutes for starting the 28th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm really honored to finally find some young blood in politics. And I think that the challenge of the paralysis of politics in the world, the absence of any leader that we can look up to, is the fact that they come from generations like mine. And it's time to hand over, actually, because look at the state of the world, the ecological disaster we face, the tremendous joblessness we see, the way in which our water resources are being polluted. So we are facing a very serious situation that requires new thinking and a new paradigm of how we see democracy, because democracy itself is also vulnerable to be captured by vested interest, as we see today, that the vast majority of elections, and there are more than 50 happening across the world today, are really influenced by money, rather than by the idea of servant leadership, like we saw in the Mandela generation, or we saw in the Mahatma Gandhi generation. We have lost that ethics, that moral compass. If I look at my involvement in politics, I didn't join politics. Politics chose me, because when I was 4 years old, we were evicted from our house because of that heinous heresy against humanity called apartheid, a racist white minority who believed we are lesser human beings than people who are white. So racism still exists in our world in a de facto way, even in democracies. Look at the United States, look at Europe, how it handles refugees seeking just to be safe, the way in which the world has now drawn an iron curtain around the developed part of the world. And the rest of us, the vast majority of humanity, are left out of this world economy. So I would suggest that it's very instrumental that when you are wanting to become political, your goal is not to become a politician who gets access to power, sits in the position of authority, and then uses that authority to then serve yourself, enrich your family, enrich your friends. At the end of the day, the democracy, the democratic fiber that we thought would answer the question of accountability, of transparency, has disappeared. Which politician, which government do we know holds itself accountable to an electorate that elected it? So in my country, South Africa, half the population of young people don't even register to vote. So if you ask why, democracy must yield something that improves the material condition of people. Otherwise, why would you vote? You know, we can't every 5 years be given a right to vote, and then the politicians make us promises, and then the day after the elections, they've forgotten about us until the next election. So something has to be recalibrated in politics to bring back an element of what I call servant leadership. You become political, not to become a politician who drives around with blue lights and fancy cars and lives in mansions. We want the type of political activist that goes into service of the most vulnerable and the most marginalized in the world. And this is what I believe my generation of current leaders across the world have forgotten, and why this youth teen parliament has a huge responsibility to bring us back to the path of accountability. Let me leave it at that.
Thank you so much, sir, for this amazing start. I think this is the core essence or the spirit of the World Teen Parliament, where we want to tell teenagers and rather give them an opportunity to experience democracy when the whole world is moving towards plutocracy. You're very right when you say that money now has a much bigger role in, electorates across the world. But as a leader, as the people that we really want to take decisions on our behalf, what are the qualities do we need in them? And that's why every Tuesday at 8 p.m. India time, we try to do something called a voting debate, which is a 60-minute experience for teenagers, where within 60 minutes, they experience the voter life cycle. So that when they really give their first valuable vote, they've practiced it multiple times, giving them an opportunity to be more skilled as a voter and more understanding as a voter. Thank you so much, sir, for this amazing start to the 28th Parliamentary session. Let me invite the next speaker for the opening address, and then we'll go into the question answer so that all the teens can interact with the amazing leaders. A very warm welcome to Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, who's the Vice Chancellor for Amity University, Uttar Pradesh in India. Balvinder ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daksh, for inviting me and for the World Teens Parliament. First of all, I want to congratulate you and your entire team for taking such a wonderful initiative. And one side, we see that uh, parliament affairs are extremely important, and involvement of youth and especially teen, if take interest, and this world can be the better place to live in times to come. Therefore, encouraging the youngster, creating that interest in the youth is very important. But at the same time, when we look at the teens, they have lot many expectations from the world, but they have also the expectation from self, and others also have the expectation from them. So how to help the teens, how to encourage them, how to motivate them, inspire them, they take the interest in political affairs at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level, and at the global level is extremely important. And that can only come when you have the right from the young age interest in the world affairs. The how the world dynamics is taking place, how the that election happens in one country and the how the other countries world over are watching. For example, nowadays the election, the national level elections are happening in India. but the whole world is in one form or other form is engaged and watching what is the next government. And with that government, the world dynamics changes. That word order changes in many ways. So therefore, it's extremely important how the teens develop that interest and make a career in the parliament, the word parliament. The India believes in, the word is one family. The G20 summit also, it was all one word, one earth, and one future. How can we really look at that? So I think that today's adolescent, while they're studying, while they are looking at various aspects, they need to look at the world affairs in very big way. Because when we have looked at the sustainable development goals, and the sustainable development goals is the first starting point, that how we can, you know, and especially the future generation have much more responsibility. One side is the water shortage which we are seeing in the many parts of the world, that has to be addressed. Poverty elevation, that has been the problem for many years, and in the future, because to have a decent life for every individual is the responsibility. And at the same time, it's very important, how do we save the forest, how do we save the water? How do we save the environment so that the future generation can live on this earth happily and all those things? So this not only we have, because our generations, future, the previous generations have done the quite a lot damage to the environment, but and also the a number of wars or kind of the problems are existing the world over. How can we make this world a peaceful word is very important, and I'm seeing that the how we can uh, bring this discussion, and I'm sure the word teen parliament is playing very important role, bringing the world leaders from across the globe, bringing the teens from across the globe. They understand the global issue there, and education is going to play a very important role. And the awareness about various matters across the globe are going to play a very important role. And I think the World Teens Parliament is playing that very important role. And I'm fortunate to be part of it, and I'm happy to contribute whichever possible way we can contribute. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Balvinder ma'am. And I think you're very right when you say that education has a big role to play when we look at democracy. Because even when Cleisthenes defined democracy, and when Socrates and Plato thought on, wrote over it, what they mentioned was that democracy is as good as the education is within that ecosystem. Because voters can only and only develop their wisdom of choice with education. Thank you so much, Belinda ma'am. So now it's time for the question hour. I would request all the teens who have submitted their questions to make sure that when you ask your questions, be a little slow so that the guest can understand your question, give them the time to respond. And before you ask a question, make sure you give your introduction, that whether you're an MP at the World Teen Parliament, an influencer, which country do you come from, where's your school, so that they have a context when they answer your question. So let me invite Johan Thomas, who's an influencer at the World Teen Parliament, to ask the first question. Johan, over to you. Please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Good evening, Mr. Jayaseelan Naidoo, according to my time zone. My name is Johan, and I'm a member of the teen influence of the World Teen Parliament. And I live in the United Arab Emirates, and I study in class 10. And my school is Our Own English High School, Sharjah Boys. And my question to you is, what can we as teens learn from South Africa's market and development?
That's a very important question, Johan. It's a question that requires a seminar. Remember that the history of apartheid was the dispossession of people's land. So 93% of the land of this country was taken away from indigenous people. The second thing, apartheid was a system of cheap labor. So the idea of apartheid and the emergence of it as a system of legalized racial prejudice was designed to protect a cheap labor system and force people, Black people, into working in the mines. By the introduction they had made that they were now required to pay taxes, hut tax and cattle taxes and poll taxes and many other types of taxes. If you look at me, I look like you because my ancestry, my great-grandmother came to South Africa in the 1860s because she was an indentured laborer. Now, an indentured laborer is the most sophisticated term for a slave. Hundreds of thousands of people were taken by the British from India to work on sugar farms across the world. So what happened in South Africa, the largest immigration out of India, 150,000 Indians came at the time that my great-grandmother came. So if you look at the system of our economy, it was based on extraction and exploitation and the wealth moving towards meeting the needs of a white minority. So that's what created the freedom struggle. The Nelson Mandelas and many honorable heroes and heroines that fought for freedom over 350 years we fought. Until in 1994, we were able to reach an agreement with the white minority that we were able to go away from the fear of whites, rise above and meet and find the common ground. That's what we need to do today. And because of us rising above our constituencies and the prejudices of our constituencies, we were able to create a container of a constitutional democracy. The core of this democracy was our intention to try and address the legacy of apartheid, which is economic. The economic disadvantage of our people was extreme. So most Black people were forced to live in townships, and workers that were working in mines in these brutalized dormitories. So there was many difficulties we had, but we did agree. But then we had a leader like a Nelson Mandela. In that first 5 years, many things happened that were very progressive. Opening up education, opening up health, opening up the economy. But unfortunately, after him, we haven't had good leaders. So what we have in our country today is that inequality, that means the Gini coefficient, the way you measure inequality between different groups. So the Gini coefficient today says that South Africa is more unequal than it was. So then means that the economy is not working for the majority of people. It's still continuing to serve the interests of a small minority. And okay, today you have a few Black people in that minority. It's more like there's salt and you put a little drop of pepper in it, but it still represents white privilege. So we have to now think very carefully in a world that is changing around what is an economy. How does one build an economy? Because if you look at the rate of the way in which technology is moving, we are moving towards artificial intelligence. We are moving towards where factories and mines are now run by machines. So the question really is, what is the diversion of young people like yourself today, millions of them who come through 12 years of education and come out with very few skills, no job, and unlikely to have a job in their lifetime? So we can't be going around promising jobs. We have to create new pathways of opportunity, of hope that allow people to become farmers, to become entrepreneurs, to become social entrepreneurs. Not every young person today wants to drive a BMW. And if you were, I would be very disappointed. Because if every one of us drove a BMW and every one of us lived like an American, then we'll need 4 planets to live on. And we only have one planet. There's no planet B here. So I would say that what we can demonstrate to the world is what not to do in creating an economy that is inclusive of everyone, that creates these pathways, as I said, of hope, and not just an obsession with money. So that's my hope, that you and the influencers would be able to build that vision, because that's the only vision that will ensure that the human race does not become extinct and take with it all other life with it. Let me leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think a very important element that you mentioned, which all the teens here should realize and try to imbibe, that everyone should not have a dream of really driving a BMW, because that's what a lot of teens nowadays come up with. That's the aspiration that all of you have. So you have to work a little bit towards moderating your aspirations in a way that we still have the Earth 40 years, 50 years, or 100 years from now, because we don't have 4 planets for so much of consumerism. Thank you so much, sir. The next question comes from Thakur Rudra Pratap Singh. Thakur Rudra Pratap Singh, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Greetings of the day to everyone present here, respected guests and all attendees. I am Thakur Rudra Pratap Singh, an MP at the 3rd World Teen Parliament, currently studying in grade 10 at the Stone Ridge International School, Uttarakhand, India. I am deeply committed to fostering positive change, particularly in the realm of education. Today, I am honored to address our distinguished guest, Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, Vice Chancellor of Amity University. So the query I perceive is, how do you envision the future of higher education in India, and what role do you see institutions like Amity University playing in shaping that future? Please guide me, ma'am.
Rudra Pratap, your question is very good. And I think that higher education plays a very important role. And we all know that there was a time in India when the India was attracting the students from across the globe. That I'm talking about the period when the India was not invaded by the various generations of Mughals and French, Britishers and all. That's before that, when India was called as the Sone ki Chidiya. We had a very old heritage and culture. The National Education Policy 2020, which has come, which has very clearly defined the role of higher education institution and how the India once again can gain the role of attracting the scholars from across the globe. That means the higher education institution need to play a very important role. And recently, our honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji have envisioned the India in a Viksit Bharat by 2040. So youth like you are going to play a very important role in that. And the higher education institution need to change itself in big way, focusing on the education which is important for the national priorities, which are important for the society as well, which are important for the industry. That means the higher education need to work very, very closely with the society, understanding that what are the societal needs and prioritizing this education, aligning with the national priority. For example, in the Viksit Bharat, it's very clearly defined that India will be the cleanest manufacturing hub for the world, that India will be the hub for the startups for the world, that India will be the third largest economy. At the same time, India will be the fifth innovative country in the world, as well as the India will be the third nation attracting the tourism, and the India will be focusing on the uh, advanced technology, semiconductors, space, and all those things. Now, how it will happen? And that will only happen when the higher education institutions are working very closely with the industry and focusing on research and innovation. Our education system was what the British education system was there. The all the research was, the India was the highly research oriented country in the ages time, and therefore now the research innovation is very, very important. And the what in the Viksit Bharat is said that the India will be the fifth innovative country in the world, and that's how the focus on artificial intelligence, biotechnology, space technology, renewable energy, manufacturing, all those is taking a lot of place. So the education also is aligning itself. And I think youth like you, when will be in the university system and the current, they will be contributing not only to the industry and economy, but also because one of the pillar is that India will be the Vishwa Bandhu, and who will make this India's Vishwa Bandhu only when we are the value based and we truly follow this Vasudev Kutumbakam, whole world is one family. And that's why G20 summit was also one earth, one dream, one family, and one future. And that only India can be there as a leader and give that mark. And the higher education like Amity universities are already working in this direction.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The next question comes from Ayesha Rafath. Ayesha, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then ask the question.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ayesha Rafath, an 8th grader from MS Education Academy, Hyderabad, Telangana, India. I am MP of the 3rd Parliament. My question is to Mr. Jayaseelan Naidoo. Sir, my question to you is that how do you navigate the delicate balance between preserving cultural heritage and implementing modern infrastructure in reconstruction projects?
Just repeat that, my dear, the last part, Aisha. I'm not very well, so my hearing is a bit down. So just repeat the question again.
Sure, I'll repeat it for you. Yeah, the question is that as a former minister and the way you see the South African society, how do you, as a decision maker, navigate the delicate balance between preserving cultural heritage and implementing modern infrastructure in reconstruction projects? When we, try to redevelop a society or try to build something new, how do we balance preserving the cultural heritage and investing in more infrastructure development?
Aisha, I think that the example I could give you is where I live. I live in a mountain, and it is called the Magaliesberg Mountain. It stretches for 120 kilometers from around 3 of the major cities in the inner part of South Africa. And these mountains came about because of volcanic action, but they created this tremendous mineral resource that we have in South Africa. But the mountain itself is very sacred to many people, including myself. It is so sacred that UNESCO made it a World Heritage Site, because this World Heritage Site also contains the cradle of all humanity and all biodiversity. So this mountain is 2.2 billion years old. And the mountain itself was the beginning of our life, because billions of years ago, this mountain produced the first life forms that were able to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and create oxygen. Now, it took place for billions of years, this process, until about 335 million years ago, the world became filled with oxygen. It took billions of years to make this. So now here you have something that has created life, that is all of us, created every form of life, of plant, of animal, of everything. But because it also contains 70% of the platinum of the world, and I live not far from what is called the platinum belt, we have seen a massive attack and destruction of the mountain to a point where it's now hitting close to what is the core of the mountain. And so complicated to that problem is the fact that Black people were dispossessed of the land, and they had a very deep cultural relationship with the mountain. It's as important to us as Kailash is to India. So this is a mountain that we should be praying to, but we are ripping it apart. And we're having government officials complicit in this, and corrupt businessmen complicit in it. So how would you handle that? Because there's been a complete disregard of the cultural heritage of the indigenous people in this land. And a lot of them have even been evicted from these mountains. So now we are getting to a point where, because of the destruction reaching a scale where it's attacking the very heart of the mountain, I have been part of bringing together an alliance of white farmers, black farmers, farm workers, people from the townships, youth people, business people, government people, to say, listen, we all need to agree on something. Because at the end of the day, this is a cultural heritage, not just of South Africa, but of the world. And therefore, we should protect it. And so we are building a system that will involve the protection of the river systems, the protection of the land, the protection of the wild animals. I live here with baboons and monkeys, and there were farmers killing the alpha male of baboons when I first came here 3 years ago. I had to step in and say, listen, in terms of many people's traditions, including mine, because I'm still a believer in my Hindu belief systems, and I have a Hanuman sitting on my altar. And I said, you killing a baboon and a monkey is attacking my cultural belief systems. There must be another way in which we can create a diversion for these animals not to cause a problem. And what I said there, it's not a baboon or a monkey problem, it's a human problem, because the humans are encroaching on the territory of wild animals. So I think that these cultural issues are in fact critical, because without culture, it's like a tree without roots. Now, this is what colonization did to us in Africa. And slavery did it to us. You were very fortunate in India that the culture survived, because the eminent sages of India, when the Mughals came or the British came, whoever came, said, give them everything they want, but keep the culture. So I think that the question you're asking is very relevant. Without culture, we are just animals. So the fact that we have culture, we have a spirituality, that I am more than this body, I am more than this mind, I am more than my intellect, means that I have a form of intelligence that is higher. It's not programmed. I have free will. I can make choices. I can be tolerant or intolerant. I can be loving or I can be fearful. I can be hot or cold. So this is a choice. And the navigation of that choice, whatever your faith is, you can be any religion. The navigation of that choice should take us to a better place of a higher consciousness. Without consciousness, humanity cannot differentiate itself from the base animal instincts. And that's what I feel we are going into a world of, where we've lost the ability to aspire to moksha. That in fact, if in my South Indian lineage, if you asked a person, when I asked my mother what was the most important thing in life, she would say moksha. She wouldn't say BMW. It is liberation from samsara, the cycle of lives and births and rebirths. Now, if you don't understand that, you can't be human. So define your humanity is defined by your roots, by your connection with nature, that I am part of nature. I'm not part from nature. I have a responsibility and obligation to protect a tree that someone wants to cut down, because a tree is a sentient being. A mountain is a sentient being. The Ganga is a sentient being. Now, we can't have economic development that throws that out of the window. And that's the danger, even in India, that the most biggest contribution India can make is its spiritual path. And that's what I see has been not as at the forefront as I would like to see it in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think some very important points that you made. It's kind of, it's kind of mesmerizing to listen to you with the kind of experience that you bring in and the kind of Indian knowledge that you bring. There's some things that we, even as Indians, don't know. Thank you so much, sir. The next question comes from Khushi Agarwal. Khushi, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Khushi Agarwal, and I'm from DPS Jaipur. My question is for Dr. Balvinder Shukla. I wanted to ask that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I fear failure. So what should I do to remove that fear and pursue entrepreneurship?
Khushi, first of all, I want to congratulate you that you want to be an entrepreneur. And I think that's the beginning. That means you have courage to do and you have the ideas. See, in life, there's nothing failure. That is an experience. You learn from the experience. So when you want to be an entrepreneur, what you have to do? You have to find an idea, and that idea you have to see, how it's going to help the society. The first thing always should be how your idea is going to help the society, which is the need of the society which you are going to address. Secondly, how important is that idea, and then you have to start working on that idea with the help of your teachers, with the help of your mentor. You have to pick the right mentor for yourself. It's very important. And I'm sure in your school, because there must be the teachers, because today when we look at in the government policy, there's the only not utter tinkering labs are in the schools. So I'm sure you must be going to your utter tinkering lab, talking to your teachers, and you must try your idea there in the adult tinkering news. You know that today the Ministry of Education, they are the institution innovation cells, the councils in the university systems, and also the similar units have started coming now in the schools. And then the way the teachers are guided, the way the students are engaged in big way, that they experiment on their ideas, work in the utter tinkering labs, have the innovation. Either that innovation will get into the product development or technology development or the student startup. The government is coming with a lot many initiatives. So I would like to congratulate you, and I would like you to work on it. If you need any help for this, we are always there. You can reach me anytime from my university, and I will leave my number also. But if you look at the Viksit Bharat, in Viksit Bharat, very clearly the India will be the hub for the startups for the world. So you have, so I'm congratulating you, and you have bright future to start your own venture, or not only one venture, multiple venture after venture, because there's so many opportunities are there. Ecosystem is such is supporting the new ideas which can contribute to the economic development of the nation, and then only India can truly be the Viksit Bharat. So wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Before we go on to the next question, I would like request Jay sir that if you're comfortable, shall we continue with more questions, because there are many questions. I hope. Okay, cool. Thank you, sir. So the next question comes from Aasim Ahmed. Aasim, please unmute. But before Aasim asks your question, Jay sir, I actually want to add something to the last question and ask your opinion on it. Khushi talked about that she wants to be an entrepreneur, but there is a fear that is instilled in her, and that's something that holds them back. You are a policymaker, you have seen superb turbulent times. So how do you as an individual fight your fear for something? Because a lot of teenagers have a fear out of peer pressure. They take decisions which are not of their own choice. They, just go by whatever is happening around them. So how do they discover their individuality, and how do you as an individual fight fear when you have to take some hard decisions?
Remember that fear and flight or fright are the natural instincts of the human nature. It's in our way in which we have been created. because we were not always the predator that we are today. There was a time when we were the prey. So the ego was a self-defense mechanism of fight or flight. And that's fear. The thing is, we have more or less eradicated everything that potentially is a danger to us. Unfortunately, 80% of the wild animals of the world have been killed by us. And billions of animals are killed every week to feed ourselves. And they are fed in the most unhealthy way. And they are grown in the most unhygienic conditions, most of them. And this is what we eat. Now, the way I understand food is that food was there as a medicine. So when we looked at the soil, we did prayers to the soil because the soil is alive. So soil science was very linked to the idea that we will grow our food in natural ways, in regenerative ways, in organic ways. This is what the way was for India for thousands of years until GMOs arrived, and then herbicides and pesticides and fertilizers, which put more and more farmers into debt, and then more and more suicides took place because these farmers were in debt and they were losing their land. So you see, this idea of soil science, food science, human science, and environmental science is a circular environment. Now, when you're looking to become an entrepreneur, look at that circular economy. Because if you're going on a linear direction, which has been what capitalism is, the current economic system in the world, it's linear. That means it does not allow the earth to replenish itself from the extraction that we are taking from her. So, if you have a piece of land and all you do is plant your seeds in that land without giving it a rest, without giving it a bit of natural manure, without taking care of it, it will die. So similar to the human body. So I think that when we are looking to entrepreneurship, I'm looking at how will we get our economy back to what it used to be, that we do not take only from nature, we also give back. There has to be a reciprocity and exchange. Capitalism has no exchange. It is take, take, take. And now we have an ecological crisis that is threatening the unborn generations. We may not have soil available. If you take what Sadhguru is talking about, safe soil, half the soil of this world is now destroyed, according to the United Nations. We've got 50% of the soil, and if in the next 60 years we don't fundamentally change it, we'll have no topsoil. You have no topsoil, we die. Everything dies. So we've got to understand entrepreneurship. If you find the faith within yourself, you will find the strength and the courage. I was part of millions of young people in this country that were prepared to die for freedom. That's how important it was to us. Now, I'm not asking you to die, any of you young people, please don't die. The question I want to ask you, what are you prepared to live for? Because if you do not act in a way that brings us back into the circular economy, into respecting nature, there is no more life. So what are you prepared to do to live is the question I have to ask you.
Thank you so much, sir. So the next question comes from Aasim Ahmed. Aasim, please continue with your question. Please introduce yourself first and then ask the question.
Good evening, sir. I am Aasim Ahmed Khan of Hyderabad, Telangana, India, from Administrative School. I am a 10th grader. My question is to Mr. Jayaseelan Naidoo, sir. Sir, my question is that what are the current changes and opportunities facing South Africa's economy, and how do they impact education and career paths for its citizens?
Aasim, that's a very important question. Now, each one of these questions you're asking me, we could spend a whole day talking about it, but we don't have that time. And I think you must pursue these questions. And there are times when you shouldn't be looking to us for answers. You need to find your own answers to these questions. When I was your age, 15 years old, I became a political activist. I went to listen to a great charismatic leader called Steve Biko, who was later brutally murdered by the security police. But what he taught me is that the mind of the oppressed is the main weapon in the hands of the oppressor. So if you can't change your mind, then you will always be a victim. You will always be a slave of someone else's ideas. So it's important that you all start to find out what are your ideas. If you're asking my ideas that I had practiced over the last 55 years, many of those ideas are completely irrelevant today. Okay, because the context has changed. There's a different context. You know, I think we all been talking about the artificial intelligence emerging, about new forms of economy, about the fact that we have to create different types of activity to keep busy. We have to see each other as part of one family and one village so that we end the wars that are spending important resources that could go into developing education. But I think education itself has to change because we're coming from a model of colonization education, which is training us to go and work in the system that belongs to someone else. Now, that system will never develop your independent thinking. It will want you to continually be a slave to earn a salary, to keep paying the mortgage and paying your children going to school in some private school, etc. So there's a whole movement starting across the world called unschooling, so that we talk about how do we create life skills that allow young people like y'all to develop the opportunities yourself in the area where you are, to develop the type of approach to entrepreneurialism that seeks to serve. Because you can be an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur. And the goal is, yes, you will live a comfortable life, but you must deliver something that is of value. So if you're going to go there and take corn syrup, which is what's caused hundreds of millions of people to become obese in the world, and you say, oh, I'm going to go and sell junk sweets made with corn syrup. Now, that's not a very wise thing to do. That's not a good entrepreneur. That's someone who's poisoning his community. So I think that even in the way you look at entrepreneurship, the way, my understanding, the Gandhian way, the Mandela way, the Martin Luther King way, is that in whatever you do, it is to earn a living and have the dignity of labor, but it is to serve a society. It cannot be one way, that I'm just there to make money. So I think that what we are looking at in South Africa now is how do we take large expanses of land that are in the country that is not being utilized? How do we create the training program for young people, starting really down in the kindergartens, teaching young people about what organic agriculture means? What is a seed? How do we plant our own plants? And so through the schools and through the universities, we are building a society that is self-sufficient in food. And why this is important for India and Africa is because these are the two places, South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa are the two epicenters of hunger in the world, where the greatest incidence of stunting, of maternal mortality, child mortality is taking place. And if we have to, at least if we can deliver a society where the dignity of a parent, a mother, to have an income that can put food on the table for her children 3 times a day, that's the meaning of development. Development means nothing if we cannot allow and we cannot empower every parent in the world to be able to put healthy, nutritious food on the table 3 times a day for the family. Otherwise, your development in economic trajectory is useless to everyone else. and especially useless to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Aasim, okay. Jay sir, can he ask a follow-up question?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Sir, my question to you is that, sir, what are your ideas on veganism and its intersection with tradition of South Africa?
Well, I'm not one to enforce a particular diet on people. Of course, I come from a background where my diet is mainly vegetarian. I think veganism is a good idea. I don't think it is there for everyone. But again, it's a matter of education. If we can start to think about how we look at the care we have to give to animals, if I look at the way in which the diet of people that are eating meat, it's the way in which we are growing these animals is brutal. Now, when you're doing that to an animal and you're slaughtering them in conditions that may not be hygienic or may be, in fact, very painful for that animal, and then you're eating that pain and what it is carrying in its spirit. So I think that ultimately, would it be a great thing that everyone voluntarily, without being forced, became a vegan? I would absolutely love that. But I think we're far from that. But it should be something we aspire to. It's something we have to practice greater humanity and humaneness in the way we are farming animals, because animals themselves carry a spirit, So I think that it's a good goal and vision to have, and I love the idea that you have asked this question. But I don't think you can enforce it.
Thank you so much, sir. So we actually have a long list of questions, but since we are nearly at the conclusion of the session, I would ask both the guests for their closing remarks. So over to Balvinder, ma'am, for your closing remark for the 28th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament. We would like you to give the teens a message that they can remember the session with, and they can remember you with, so that they have a story to tell. And if they want to get back to you, they must remember you as a person promoting some value that they can remember as a takeaway. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Daksh. I think this was very interesting session, especially the kind of the questions the individuals have asked, that they are not thinking for themselves, but rather they are thinking for the world, and they're very keen and interested to know what is happening in other parts of the world. And I would only like to say a few things to all the participants, especially the youth, that always think for the word. If that word is how, and always dream that how you want to make this world a better place to be for everybody. Because there's not another planet where you know that if this planet is not kept clean, peaceful, that can fly to somewhere else. No, this is the word for generation and generation and generations, and how we can give this planet in safe hands in future is very important. That can only happen if we are able to preserve education. I would always say is the starting point. And what Jayaseelan Naidoo was saying, again it comes to that very old Indian system when we talk about that the Vedic age. And I think in the Vedic age itself, the democracy was very well defined, where the Sabha or Samiti or Sansad finds mention of the, in those texts during the Rig Veda or the Atharvaveda period. So democracy is very old, that people have the voice to say, consult, coordinate, and then take the decision making. But now the shape is changing, the form is changing with the technologies, with all these things. But it has made the world also very, very connected today. And in that connected world, how we can communicate well, how we can represent well, and how we can take care of the all kind of the societies. Because what that Mr. Naidu has mentioned, the how we can eliminate the hunger from this earth. The parents are able to give the nutritious food to their children, not the having the all kind of the luxuries. The basic of life is very important, and if you can take care of the society and the you know and I think that the purpose is very important, that you define the what is the purpose of coming on this earth. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to be remembered? Okay, nobody will remember what you had the will, what work did you do for the society, for the nation, for the world, and that will always be remembered. And that can only come when you are looking at the people. You are very fortunate, but look at the people who are not that fortunate, and what can do you do for them? And that can only happen again through service. Okay, and that can happen through the human values which you develop in yourself, and also giving, not taking all the time. What Mr. Naidu was also saying, always think what you can give to others, how to serve the others to make this world a better place to live. And I think this world is in your hands, and you all as a youth, you can spread this message that how we can make hunger free this world. And that's the only message I would like to tell. Whether you have the job or startup or social entrepreneurship or whatever, innovation and the creativity will always be needed. The problem solving approach will also be irrespective whether you have resources or not, but the innovation can always bring the problem solving approach, and the resource mobilization automatically happens. So wish you all the best, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for being a part of the 28th Parliamentary session. Before the session comes to an end, uh, actually, we wanted to take the closing statement from Mr. Jay Naidu, but we are getting so many messages from the teenagers who are here. So I would like to ask Jay Naidu sir himself that would you like to answer one more question, or would you like to give a closing statement? Whatever you feel like.
The future belongs to the young people. I would be very happy to come back again, but I can take another question. It's not
Okay.
an issue.
So this question actually comes from a former MP of the World Team Parliament. Over to Amber. Amber, please introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Hello, Mr. Ju. My name is Amber. I'm 15 years old and I'm from Seiful International School in Malaysia, although I'm Korean. My question is, there's an overflow of information nowadays, and how do we distinguish between correct and incorrect information? And also, how do we persuade the ones who believe in false information? To take an example, so there's a Northeast project going on in China, and like many Chinese people think because of the project, many parts of Korean culture belongs to China, and China is the origin of the Korean culture, which is wrong. And how do I persuade them?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question. You'll ask such important and innovative questions, and sometimes I don't have the answers for that. But no one can question what your culture is, Amber. Only you know it. So look deep in your heart and you'll find the answers. What we search in life is the truth, the supreme truth, is what you believe. When we come into this human experience, your soul makes a choice as to what it wants to be coming into. Sometimes it will choose to be Korean, sometimes it'll be maybe African, sometimes it'll be a tree, sometimes it'll be the mountain. You see, Earth is a school where we come to learn about how we deal with something that does not exist in many other dimensions of life that we with five senses cannot see. And so that experience is a unique journey for yourself. And that's why, in a sense, while parenting is a way in which we have to create the safeguards for children when a mother is carrying a baby, to when it's born, to its time it gets to be a toddler, it goes through these rites of passage, and parenting is most important. But parenting should never prescribe how you, as the child, should become. So this notion, you have to go and study to be a doctor because doctors are seen as an important position, is not the right thing to do to a child. Because a child knows why it's come into an experience. It carries what it calls the flavor of what it had in previous lives. It's called the vasanas. And so it will find its passion. So what we should be doing in parenting and in society is encouraging our children to find their passion. Now, you see, when someone tells you, like apartheid, it told us that we are lesser human beings because of the color of my skin. Now, that's the most brutal thing you can have of cultural colonization, of cultural, in a way in which culture has been, in a sense, robbed of us. So the way in which I would approach that is to say, we fought for our right to our culture, our right to know our own roots. What happened with colonization and slavery and the type of economic pathway that we see today of capitalism, it shows no respect for that, because it does not see our individuality, our uniqueness. And so I think the goal in life is always to find your path, stray off the beaten path, question everyone and question everything, but find your truth, because each one of us carries our own single truth. And if I had to take it to the next step, which is my closing comments, and think, how did a Nelson Mandela do this? Because he was a herd boy. He was in his family, even though it was a royal family in a tribal area, he had to take care of cows, and then eventually became an activist, and then he became a revolutionary. And then he went to prison for life. And for 18 years, he had to sleep in this prison cell the size of a small bathroom on a sisal mat. And so what happened to him is that when you are tortured in such a way, there's two things that could happen. You either go insane or you go inside. He went inside. And when he went inside, he found that actually to get away from the mind, which was a cesspool of attachments, of compulsions, of ego, of desires, okay? So you have all these desires. I want this, I want that, I want that. And every desire creates a little bit more karma. That means you're going to carry a little bit of a mountain of service before you get rid of that karma. So the thing is, what I can only say to you is that the only way out is the way in. When you have aligned your inner and outer worlds, then you're not dependent on someone else's judgment. Young people today, especially with this social media stuck in their hands, are spending all their time looking down at their palms rather than experiencing the mystery and the beauty of life. You miss out on life. And then you don't develop a depth in anything. You have to develop like an inch of a top of knowing a little about everything. Now, if you go back to our ancestors, all our ancestors, whether you're Korean or Chinese or Indian or African, there was tremendous knowledge. There was vocation. There was study. There's deepening of our inner understanding of why we are here. Who am I? Where am I coming from? Where am I going? What is the purpose of my life? If you're not asking yourself those questions, you are missing out on life. And so I would encourage all of you to embrace those questions and answer them. Try to answer them, because through answering those questions, you come to find your passion. And when you find your passion, you'll find that service is the foundation of your passion. So even if your passion is to become an entrepreneur or to become wealthy, it's not about wealth. It's not a problem you becoming wealthy. It's a question is, what do you use your wealth for? What do you use your education for? What do you use your skills for? If it's just used to advance your own narrow interests, then you have not understood life. And that would be my parting gift to you all. That in service, and we drop from our minds to the unconditional love of our heart. We became heart-based leaders or heart-based students or heart-based entrepreneurs, heart-based politicians. Then we will bring that the trajectory of humanity back to its moral center. And then we will be able to ascend our levels of consciousness, become awakened, and prevent an ecological disaster that could probably end all life on our planet. And that would be, I hope, the commitment that you all will give, so that we can give some hope to those children still coming after us. So thank you very much.
So instead of getting swayed away by outside information, we question it by ourselves and think inside.
Do your own research. Do your own research. The internet is there. It has good and bad. It has right and wrong. It has fake and true. Don't believe anyone who tells you this is fake news. Find out for yourself.
I see.
Inquire, investigate. Don't accept it because it comes from a media house, it comes from a journalist, comes from a TV station. Therefore, it is true. Because even large parts of the media today have been corrupted and captured.
Yes.
And that many sectors of our economy, of our society are now captured, just like our governments, many of them have become captured. We look at the pharmaceutical sector and the way they've captured the medical industry today. You look at any sector of society. Find your own truth. Question everyone, question everything.
I see. Thank you for your answer, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Jayaseelan Naidoo, sir. And thank you so much, Balvinder ma'am, for being a part of the 28th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament. I think a very important takeaway for everyone who was there experiencing the 28th Parliamentary Session is, let's take a little bit of an experience from Nelson Mandela himself. Let's try experiencing a little bit of void in our own lives. Leave all the digital devices around you, leave social media around you, spend some time with yourself and celebrate all the questions and all the curiosity that you have within you as an individual. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of the 28th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament. Namaste.